And what happens when people talk about classic rock and progressive music from the 60s and 70s? They're usually talking about the same handful of albums, but beneath the surface lies a treasure trove of records that pushed boundaries, told strange stories, and quietly influenced entire genres. Now in this video, I'm diving into 10 criminally underrated albums from that golden era. First up we have Meddle from Pink Floyd from 1971. Now while most people cite Dark Side of the Moon or The Wall as Pink Floyd's definitive moments, true fans know the real magic started with Meddle. Released in 1971, this was the album where the band finally found their identity after the experimental haze of their earlier work. Critically, Meddle was well received, but its impact was soon buried under the immense success of what followed. Still, it is essentially Floyd. It's atmospheric, it's conceptual, and it's sonically rich. The album's centerpiece, the 23-minute Echoes, is an odyssey in itself. It travels from serene soundscapes to eerie seagull guitar wails, and then back again. It's a universe. And then there's One of These Days with its growling bass line and ominous spoken word. A track that still slaps over 50 years later. Meddle wasn't just a stepping stone, it was a peak in its own right. At number 2 we have the oddly named H to He Who Am the Only One by Van der Graaf Generator from 1970. Now with a name that reads like a riddle, and music that defies easy categorization, H to He Who Am the Only One is one of prog rock's darkest corners. Released in 1970, it's the sound of a band willing to go where few others dared, into the psychological abyss. Peter Hamill's lyrics explored really essential dread, cosmic isolation and doomed relationships. Cheerful stuff. Musically, it's a storm of swirling organs, fierce saxophones and shifting tempos. Critics at the time just didn't quite know what to make of it. It was too intense, too highbrow, too, downright strange. But for the fans of progressive music that aren't afraid to confront the void, this album is essential. It starts with Killer, a track that combines proto-metal riffing with the tragic tale of a solitary sea creature. Then we move to Lost, a heartbreaking meditation on the disintegration of love, punctured by musical chaos. H to He is not background music, it demands attention, but it also rewards it. At number 3, we have Argos from Wishbone Ash in 1972. Now, Argos is one of those albums that quietly built a legacy whilst the spotlight shone elsewhere. Released in 1972, this third record from Wishbone Ash blends melodic twin guitar harmonies with folk-inspired storytelling and a touch of British mysticism. Although it received strong critical praise, even being voted the best album of the year by Melody Maker no less, it never really gained the cultural clout of its peers. Still, musicians from Thin Lizzy to Iron Maiden cite Argos as a key influence. Lyrically, the album leans into themes of war, fate and ancient battles. The mood is both majestic and mournful, reading really like an old English epic. The opening track, Time Was, begins as a gentle folk tune before erupting into a guitar-driven anthem. The King Will Come, a favourite of mine, is another standout, soaring, meditative and packed with emotion. If you like your rock with narrative depth and interwoven guitar work, Argos deserves a spot in your rotation. Number 4, we have From the Witchwood by the Strawbs in 1971. Now, From the Witchwood is the sound of a band caught in a fascinating transition, from the folk roots to symphonic progressive rock. This was Strawbs' first full dive into the world of mellotron-drenched arrangements and conceptual storytelling, aided by the debut future Yes keyboardist Rick Wakeman. Now, at the time, the album received really modest praise, especially for its musicianship and lyrical depth, but it was often overshadowed by flashy contemporaries. Today, however, it stands as a beautifully balanced, richly textured record that fuses the pastoral with the progressive. Thematically, it explored spiritual unrest, social upheaval and introspection, These were all cloaked in acoustic textures and progressive ornamentation. A Glimpse of Heaven stands out as a melodic, almost hymn-like anthem, while The Hangman and the Papist delivers a powerful narrative on religious conflict with dramatic flair. It is an album that feels ancient and modern all at once, and it's an important chapter in prog's evolution through folk storytelling. Here's a strange one for you. At number 5 we got Electric Warrior from T-Rex. Now, Mark Bolan may have danced in glitter, but Electric Warrior proves he had the songwriting chops to back it up. This 1971 album signalled the birth of glam rock, really, but it also revealed Bolan's ability to fuse rock and roll swagger with strange poetic sensibilities. Commercially, it was a raving success. Get It On, Bang a Gung became a huge hit, but critics often dismissed it as style over substance. That's really a mistake. But beneath the glam exterior are songs about love, vulnerability and cosmic wonder. Cosmic Dancer is heartbreaking in its simplicity. Just Bolan, an acoustic guitar and an existential yearning. Meanwhile, Gypster's pure rock seduction full of rhythm and attitude. Electric Warrior wasn't just a fad, it was a blueprint from everyone from David Bowie to the Smiths to Beck. Now, if you haven't revisited in a while, now really is the time. At number 6 we have the classic from Caravan, In the Land of Grey and Pink. Part fairy tale, part jazz odyssey. In the Land of Grey and Pink from 1971 is one of the most charming entries in the Canterbury scene. Caravan were often overshadowed by bands like Yes and Genesis, but they delivered a dreamy, sophisticated album that balanced technical skill with a light-hearted, pastoral vibe. Released in 1971, the album was well regarded by critics, but never gained much commercial traction, sadly. Over time, it's become a cult classic, and quite rightly so, particularly among fans of more melodic and whimsical prog. The album's first half includes delightful tunes like Golf Girl, I love that track, which features playful lyrics, jazzy flute and a real sense of joy. But the real crown jewel is 9 Feet Underground. This is a 22-minute suite filled with seamless transitions, gorgeous solos and rhythmic intricacies. Themes range from British countryside daydreams to introspective journeys, all tied together by Richard Sinclair's warm vocals and the band's fluid musicianship. It's an album that makes complexity sound effortless. At number 7, we have Barclay James Harvest and Other Stories. This band often lived in the shadow of the Moody Blues and Pink Floyd, but their 1971 album, And Other Stories, reveals a band capable of deep emotion and orchestral grandeur. While critics were sometimes dismissive, viewing them probably as too sentimental or derivative, the truth is, this album is rich with atmosphere and heartfelt songwriting. It's symphonic rock that really wears its heart on its sleeve. The album explores themes of longing, memory and the passage of time. The poet is a gentle lament soaked in mellotron textures, while After the Day combines poetic lyrics with sweeping instrumental swells. There's a quiet beauty to these songs, a kind of humble majesty. It may not reinvent the wheel, but it doesn't need to. Other Short Stories is about mood and melody, and in that it delivers beautifully. At number 8 we have the self-titled track from Clear Blue Sky from 1970. These were a teenage power trio producing some of the most blistering proto-prog of the era. That's Clear Blue Sky. Their 70s self-titled debut was released on the legendary Vertigo label, you know, the one with the squiggly circles, but flew completely under the radar, partly due to poor promotion and partly because they were just a little ahead of their time. Musically, it's heavy, raw and full of ambition. Think early Zeppelin meets Cream, but with a progressive twist. The guitar work from John Sims is especially notable, fluid, fierce and imaginative. The album kicks off a journey to the inside of the sun, a 3-part epic with tempo shifts, driving riffs and psychedelic interludes. Other tracks like Sweet Leaf, not to be confused with the Black Sabbath song, show off their bluesy chops. Clear Blue Sky never got the recognition they deserve, but dig it up and you'll find a lost classic of British heavy rock. At number 9, we've got The Polite Force from Egg. Now, if classical music and jazz had a weird, brilliant baby in the Canterbury scene, it would sound like The Polite Force by Egg. Released in 1971, this album is dense, strange and sometimes hilarious, but it's always fascinating. Egg's brand of prog is more cerebral and emotional. The band lean heavily into classical counterpoint and complex time signatures, with Monk Campbell's bass and Dave Stewart's organ carrying most of the weight. Now, critics didn't exactly embrace them, finding their music too academic, but for fans of avant prog and Canterbury oddness, The Polite Force is a treasure. Contrasong is the most accessible track, complete with a brass section and off-kilter rhythms. But the real meat is in the long piece number 3. This is a 4-part instrumental that blends Baroque motifs with psychedelic chaos. I have to be honest, it's not easy listening, but it is rewarding with its own eccentric ways. It closes with Space Shanty from Korn in 1972. Now, before Steve Hillage blasted off with Gong, he was already exploring space with Korn. Space Shanty, released in 1972, is the band's only album, but it's a cosmic, jazz-tinged marvel that more than earns its cult status. Musically, it combines heavy guitar riffs, dreamy synth textures, and moments of free-form exploration. Hillage's guitar tone alone is worth the price of admission. Melodic, fluid, and absolutely soaring. Lyrically, the album touches on transcendence, illusion, and time. That title track, Space Shanty, kicks things off with quite an epic build, while Hollow Stone brings a more introspective, almost Freudian vibe. Though it was largely ignored at the time, Space Shanty has since become a gem in the Canterbury-adjacent canon. Now, if you like your prog with a sense of wonder and style guitar work, then this is really one to try and seek out. As I say, these albums may not have topped the charts, but they expanded what rock music could really be, emotionally, technically, and conceptually. They're really the underdogs of that golden era, each with their own legacy waiting to be rediscovered. Have you heard any of these? Have you got one we missed? Drop your favourites in the comments below. The 60s particular is a real hotbed for bands and music, and in the video I shot here, I look at 6 groups who were big in this time zone. That's the video you should watch next, and I'll see you over there.